Redditors who have met a former crush years later. How did it turn out? Found out she was fat and unattractive. Then I realized I was too. Ran into her some years later in our mid-20s at a New Year's party. We both were just recently single and started to click. Eventually we both confessed to a mutual crush in high school. Then as the night went on and beer flowed, she jerked off 2 random guys in the living room. Edit. Holy karma. You Jujuna is a BTCH. Good. We had tacos. Then did oral stuff in my car behind Tackable and haven't spoken since. Hadn't seen her in 15 years. Ran into each other online. Decided to meet up for dinner. Married now for 5 years and 1 kid. I liked her when we were 15 but she wasn't nice to me. I ran into her when we were 23 and she looked so old I didn't recognize her. When she realized I didn't recognize her, she began to cry and ran to the bathroom. Never saw her again. Update. Thanks for all the questions. I had rather sad answers to most of you. 1. We definitely weren't at Taco Bell, aka the Aphrodite of fast foods. 2. I'm confident she wasn't a faceless man who was accidentally named by her friend. He always said, I want to be a cop. I'll never be a frickin' firefighter. Firefighters are pea size. Cops are the real men. He became an army firefighter. But instead of being humbled he's still a total douche. Had a crush on her all through freshman and sophomore year. She kissed me at the end of sophomore year. I failed to reciprocate. Basically ran away from her. Extreme social anxiety. I switched schools after disappearing for the summer, not because of the kiss. But when school started again I walked to her school every day for half of the year in hopes of having the balls to make a move. Saw her each day. Failed each day. She obviously got tired of waiting. Ended up with another guy. I gave up. Come end of senior year she shows up at my school to see some guy. Saw me. Literally jumped into my arms and forced her phone number on me. Together 7 years come November. I proposed to her around a week ago. Edit. Thank you for the gold, you amazing person. Edit 2. For those who have asked. She said yes. Though the proposal was more of a discussion of the ring I am trying to have made for her. Social awkwardness FTW. When I was in first year I had the stupidest little girl crush on this guy in my program. And I had no idea how to express it. So I think I thoroughly creeped him out with my staring and pathetic attempts to get him to have coffee with me and such. Anyway. That was 8 years ago and I've really matured as a person since then. I hadn't even thought of him in years when I ran into him. I was actually excited to find out he worked at a store I was planning to go to. I thought, I can finally have a normal conversation with crush. He'll see I'm not a creepy weirdo anymore. Anyway, when I ran into him our conversation went like this. Me. Hey, crush. How's it going? Him. Good thanks. How are you? Me. Good thanks. How are you? And then it just spiraled into awkwardness from there. Guess some people just bring it out of me. Went out for drinks. Still fixated on her. Was given a chance. Got wasted and embarrassed myself by spending so much of the night talking about how much my younger self liked her. Extolling her virtues like it was years ago. Mentioned how crazy and awesome it was that I was finally getting my chance. It was sad as shit. I didn't realize how bad I fricked up until I sobered up. Woke up and immediately knew I would not be given a second opportunity. Saw her reactions and responses from the previous night with a sober eye. Realized the massive amount of I'm going to be polite, but I've made a mistake that was continuously written across her face. Embarrassing as shit. It seems that the girls I was chasing in high school. If I see them now it's like, I don't see what the big deal was. And then the girls I wasn't chasing, but in retrospect should have been. are all insanely gorgeous, funny, smart. If I had a time machine, I'd go back and punch 15-year-old me right in the beanbag. Idiot. Ran into my high school crush because we were both on the same plane and seated across the aisle from each other. She's a lesbian now. Let's see. Met her when I was 13. We totally crushed. Fast forward to when we're both 23. She has a kid from a previous marriage. But it didn't bother me. Got married. She cheated. Tried to take me for child support for her daughter. 2/10 would not recommend. Her last name is very close to mine, so throughout high school our lockers were together or we'd have seats in class next to each other. She was a cheerleader. Incredibly hot and also a cool person. We were friends but nothing close. I ran into her 4 years later. She dropped out of college and is waiting tables now. But she got even hotter. Still a really nice girl though. Edit. Sorry to disappoint guys. But no oral at Taco Bell was involved. People keep asking if I asked her out and no I didn't. I've had a girlfriend for over 2 years. No we didn't hook up at a Taco Bell either. Had drinks. Went back to her hotel. Basically did not leave it for 2 days. We started a small thing when we were around 17 years old. Didn't work out cause she was spoiled and I was pretty heartless asshole. Fast forward a few relationships for us both, 11 years of growth, and she came back into my life a few months ago. We're dating and life is pretty good now, couldn't ask for anything more. Sometimes it's the right person but the wrong time. My wife's former crush randomly messaged her on Facebook one day. She flicked him on day 2. She's now my ex-wife. She's jobless living with his mom. And I have the kids. She works at a supermarket near me. I said hi one time and have since avoided using it because I'm not the best with repeated social interaction. Edit. Thanks for all the helpful tips guys. But I avoid her because I don't want to do the "Hey what's up? How you doing?" Fake an interest in their life interaction. Really? I'm all good socially mostly. She was in my class back in kindergarten. In my class again in 3rd grade. Showed her my boxers and she was now my girlfriend. Then I discovered she cheated on me with my best friend. I saw him showing her his underwear. Needless to say, I've moved on from that event in my life. But if you are out there Olivia or Matt, frick you. Will likely be buried forever, but what the hell? Had a crush on this girl in grade school, 1st second. Playdates, video games, action figures. Life was good. Bought her a present at a 5 and 10 because I thought she'd like it. It was a ring. She was ultra embarrassed and ran off. My parents still have not let me forget that. She changed schools, for other reasons, that next year. Fast forward 14 years. Graduated from undergrad. Working for a company in my hometown and working on getting accepted to medical school. Out for drinks one night with friends and who should come by but her? Beautiful. Great taste in music. Smiles at my jokes. Smitten. Fast forward several more years. Gave her a ring again. She did not run away. Happily married several years. Saw her at the 10-year HS reunion. She was a bit heavier than she'd been in HS. But still attractive. She was there with her Ivy League fiancé registered sign. These two facts combined to change my mindset from "I wanna bang my HS crush at our reunion" to "oh well, never mind." At one point, we were being recognized for something. And with all eyes on us, she leaned over and said, "Homer, I remember what a crush you had on me. You wanted me bad." First, I couldn't really react, given the immediate circumstances. Second, I didn't detect any kind of Taco Bell type invitation in what she'd said, sorry. In fact, it almost seemed like she was just lording it over me. I mean, she was there with her fiancé registered sign, who he determined in previous small talk she loved and who was awesome. For some reason, It really pissed me off. I just gave her a blank look, shrugged, and walked away. To this day, I wish I'd had some kind of witty comeback. But that's about my only regret. Haven't seen her since. But I hope she's happy. And blah. 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 Got Thai food. Hung out. Caught up. Pretty chill. Would still frick her brains out, but I don't think she's into it. We're married now. Had mega crush in high school. Finally contacted him 6 years later since I knew him back then, and we haven't been apart since. Now we have been together for 4 years. Married for 1 and have a baby on the way. Dreams really do come true, I don't care how cheesy that sounds. I was in love with him for most of my lower teenage years. He was my best friend, but I broke it off when I found out he'd been talking shit behind my back. I never thought he meant what he said about me. But I do know he was desperate to be liked by people. And didn't mind shitting on me to seem cooler to them. Of course the people he talked to told me about it. I sent him a handwritten letter explaining what I'd heard. And also that I was still in love with him and couldn't be just friends. We met up when I was 19. About 3 years since we'd last seen each other. He was as charming as he'd always been. And I realized how quickly we fell back into our previous roles. Him being cool but kind of an asshole. And me hanging off his every word. I'm happy we met up because it gave me some closure to realize I didn't feel the same as I did about him. And that he was even more of an asshole. I still think about him sometimes, but much more soberly than I did when we still hung out. Crushed hard and competed for a really cute girl in college, but when she moved in with him I closed the door on things. Years later she sought me out on Facebook as apparently for her. I was the one that got away. It led to a tawdry on again. Off again. Mostly yes or tryst, in which we determined the things we did best were fighting or effing, which we cycled through quarterly until about a 4-year break due to mutual animosity. We made up. Had an amazing year. And broke up again in a heart-wrenching explosion that stings to this day. We had a beer. Talked a bit. It was nice. She was even hotter than before. I was now swole. Made decent money. Decent haircut, clothes, etc. Thought I had a shot. I clean up real good. She never called me back when I asked her to go to a show. Last I looked on Facebook she's married now. That was like 6 or 7 years ago. Now I just quietly weep in the dark and drink and watch Netflix. Don't go out much anymore. Thanks OP for reminding me. Jackass. Super. We originally met my freshman year of high school. His senior year. 3 years later. We met again. I still had a crush. We became really good friends. Then started dating after I graduated. We are now married and have been for over 2 years. Tried to pull an ultimatum on me in high school. Do this or we're over. I called her bluff and that's how our relationship ended. 10ish years later we're both single and I visit her on a lark. Turns out she's sleeping with a divorced man and trying to get him to abandon his wife and daughter. Yeah. Also her apartment was absolutely filthy. I mean I'm no prize, but I've tried to ruin exactly 0 families. Good, we've been dating for almost a year now. He was my crush back in junior high. He didn't even know me. He was in the French stream. I was in English. We connected over 10 years later on Tinder. He asked what my spirit animal was. And I said Iggy Azalea, and that was that. I wasn't all that interested in him when we went out. But for some reason it worked out. I didn't tell him until our 5th date that I already knew him from before. He looks like a taller version of what he did back then. It's a little weird. I had a crush on the daughter of my mom's friend when I was about 10 years. We would hang out a lot. Sometimes all night when our moms were working together at the coat check of the restaurant my dad valeted for. She was definitely my first big crush. But I was a shy, awkward kid. I remember one of the last times we hung out. I gave her my favorite Lion King trading card because I like her. After our moms got new jobs, we didn't see each other anymore. The next time I saw her was when we were 18. She was really different, and even though she was still really cute, I didn't feel the same way about her. We talked for a bit and caught up. She showed me pictures of her son. Apparently she had gotten pregnant when she was 17 and had a beautiful baby boy that her mom looked after so she could finish school. It was a nice experience, especially finding out what she had been up to all those years. Had a crush on the high school QB, and his family was royalty in my school. It was a very small town that worshipped football, and his family had been players going back 4 generations or something like that. But in terms of popularity, this guy wasn't just out of my league. He was out of my stratosphere. Fast forward 10 years. I'm newly single and he looks me up on the book. Flirting plus admitting I had a huge crush on him, and school equals date. Effing score for me. There? Yeah. No. I get to his place and he's living in a 300 square foot box. Still driving that 89 pickup from HS. Talking about how he was king shti. Still caught up in being worshipped in school and clearly couldn't grasp why the real world didn't do the same. Can you believe? Reddit. That he actually had to prove himself. The goddamn nerve of his boss. Ate dinner. The man did grill one hell of a steak, and noped out. All through elementary and middle school I was absolutely enamored with this one girl. As kids in elementary school we did that cutesy BFGF thing without actually being in a relationship. I thought we would get married and have like 1,000 kids. In middle school she became a bad kid. I guess she had some trouble at home and her entire demeanor shifted during summer. She became an emo kid. Started hanging out with the kids who go arrested and was in and out of the principal's office non-stop. I still tried hanging out with her because I was still crushing hard. But we were just too different now. I was into awkward masturbation and RuneScape. She was into Hot Topic and giving handjobs to high schoolers behind the gas station. Eventually she was sent to juvie and that was the last I heard of her. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. I'm home on summer break from college and I find her on Tinder. We match and talk for a few days. She ended up getting knocked up in HS and dropping out due to being a single mom. She mentions meeting up for some coffee and maybe a movie at her place. I just unmatched her. Something about seeing how she turned out just ruined the illusion for me. Ever since the 6th grade I had always had a huge crush on this guy we'll call Michael. Michael and I sat next to each other in math class and became good friends. One day after class I thought I had worked up the courage to tell him how I felt. I remember walking to our lockers together and me saying something along the lines of, I have to tell you something. I like you. Just kidding. Followed by me running away to get sick in the bathroom. I totally chickened out halfway though. Fast forward to high school. Michael and I are still acquaintances and I am of course still crushing. Eventually in 11th grade Michael asks me out on a date and I am stoked. Come to find out, he is the worst kisser ever and I still don't care. We casually go on dates here and there throughout junior and senior year. I had always hoped that we could have become more. But it was never serious and he often went out with other girls. During my senior year in college I end up reconnecting with Michael over Facebook. He asked me out and I couldn't have been more excited, hoping to maybe finally end up with this guy that I had placed on a pedestal for so long. Long story short, he took me out to dinner at Applebee's and invited me back to his place to watch a movie. Within the first 5 minutes, he starts trying to make a move. I was surprised to find out that his kissing skills had not gotten any better. But whatever. This was Michael. Well, as this goes on, he starts trying to take my clothes off and I politely decline. He says he understands and goes back to kissing. 30 seconds later he is at it again. Trying to undress me and get on top of me. I keep telling him no and he just keeps trying. He's going on and on. I really like you. Come on. I think we could really work out. Come on. After this keeps happening over the course of the next 5 minutes, I decide I need to leave. He is unhappy about it and asks if he can see me again and I say, comma. Sure. I get out of there and haven't seen or talked to him since. He did text me a few times after that, but I just had no interest. Reconnected with the one that got away. We were in the beginning of a relationship in high school, about 17, and she moved unexpectedly. Was devastated, but through chance, mutual friend, reconnected with her. We were 23 or so. First day seeing each other was great for the both of us, and it seemed like we were connecting beautifully. Hooked up, whispered sweet nothings, and had some great sex. Then reality set in and we took a road trip together, where she became a crazy BTCH. She seemed to have a prescription pill addiction, which was likely the source. The takeaway is that we generally remember the things we want to about people, and I always thought about meeting her again. We did try to reconnect one last time, but she went full psycho. She called or texted me about a year or so ago. We reconnected probably 3 years ago. Wasn't going to deal with her again and was glad I ignored, deleted her number. Edit. Begging to beginning. Starting way back in 6th grade, I always had a crush on a girl who we'll call Suzanne. For the Weezer fans out there. We were both horribly awkward, as you are at that age, and would never make a move on one another. It didn't help that we both had some self-esteem issues. But who didn't at that age? Eventually in high school I ended up basically giving up after her best friend, who we'll call Megan, told me that Suzanne didn't like me. Turns out Megan was a manipulative psycho who also had a crush on me. And we ended up dating for around a year until I realized that at 16 she was already planning our wedding. Fast forward a few years and all of us went our different ways for college. I still kept in touch with Suzanne, but we both ended up in serious relationships with other people. Apparently we both still hadn't moved on from our feelings towards the other, but neither of us ever brought it up. In junior year in college I was visiting nearby her campus with friends. My current girlfriend stayed behind at our school for work and gave her a call to catch up. My friends and her friends all got together at a bar and had a great time. We ended up back at a friend's apartment for the night. And as the drinks kept flowing we both got a little more open. I ended up cheating on my college girlfriend that night and felt horrible about it. Suzanne and I saw each other twice more that week before I had to head back to school, and neither of us brought up what had happened. Once I was back at school, I was extremely confused. My current girlfriend and I had been in a rough patch and were trending downward. But I still wasn't sure if Suzanne considered me a drunken mistake. I decided just to see how everything played out with time. A few months before graduation, my college girlfriend and I split. After graduation, Suzanne and I both moved back home for new jobs, and I worked up the courage to finally ask her out. That same night, I finally kissed her, sober. And the second our lips separated she whispered, "Finally!" Exclamation point. She was into it. She was into me. Fast forward a few weeks and we're boyfriend and girlfriend. She's filled me in on the fact that she's been crazy about me since we were kids. A few years later, we're married at 25. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary last weekend and things have been outstanding. She's the love of my life. TLDR. Took me 14 years of awkward waiting, but I married her. Had a crush on this really pretty girl that was in my study hall, and I always tried to steal glances and check her out and all that. But I would never have dared to ask her out. Anyway, about a year ago I got a text from a number I didn't know, and started talking to them. Surprise, surprise. It was her. She told me she used to write poems about me in study hall. It hasn't gone any further than that, but we do Snapchat and catch up occasionally. Last time I saw her when I was 12. I was 35 when I did some research on the internet and found her. I sent her a letter saying hi and was curious on how she was doing. Gave my email address and cell phone number. 3 weeks went by and get a message through Facebook from her saying, "I'm fine. Married with twin boys. Don't contact me again." 6 months go by and my parents get a phone call from a guy saying he's her ex-husband and wanted to talk to me. I call him from a friend's cell phone. He tells me that she's in a marriage with an extremely controlling husband and I should be careful. I thank him for letting me know and hang up. I've stayed away ever since. I'm sorta currently going through something like this. Dated 2 years ago. She went through a rough patch and I was young and stupid, so she slammed the door on me. We added each other to Facebook and met recently. It was outstanding. We had really great time and went to her place. I don't know where it goes from now. Gotta be patient and receptive, I guess. We've been dating nearly a year. He was my sister's best friend and I crushed on him from 2nd grade to 10th. I am high-fiving the hell out of my childhood self now. Most amazing relationship I've ever had. Had a huge crush on a guy in HS that was a total douchebag to me. Fast forward a couple years. I have a terrible job serving food from a hotline in a cafe on the campus of his very prestigious college. I see him coming down the line and want to cry immediately. Because he looks fantastic and is clearly excelling at college. While I at the time was stuck in an abusive relationship with my high school sweetheart. Had recently discovered I was pregnant. Felt trapped in that awful job. And was having a shitty day and looked, as far as I was concerned, a hot mess. Crush saw me. Recognized me. Waited until there wasn't a line anymore. And started a conversation with me. He lied and told me I looked great. That he was thrilled to run into me. He gave me a huge hug. Apologized for being such a douchebag in high school. Listened to me cry about my life for a while. I hadn't intended on crying. But once he started being nice to me, it threw me off so hard I couldn't help it. At the end of the conversation he gave me another hug. Told me to keep my chin up. And to add him on Facebook so we could hang out sometime. For various unfortunate reasons. I didn't ever take him up on that offer. But he actually helped me a lot that day. His kindness was eye-opening for me. I still think about it a lot. If you're reading this, thank you. Strat. You changed me that day. I had a huge crush on this girl through most of high school. And in hindsight, I'm nearly certain she felt the same way. I was kind of an awkward dumbass back then. Few years after high school. I was in a bar when I heard someone yell my name. I turn around and I see this very heavy-set girl walking towards me with a big smile on her face. I stare at her confused for a moment before realizing it was the same girl plus at least 150 pounds of her. Her cheerful demeanor kind of disappeared for a bit as she realized I couldn't even recognize her at first. I imagine it happened to her a lot. I wish it was a story of the hot, popular cheerleader who broke my heart. But it's not. She was one of the sweetest, kindest people you could hope to meet. And given how thin she always was in high school, I think she might have been one of those few obese people who actually did have a medical condition. I still feel terrible about how I reacted to seeing her. But she's married to some rich guy and has a bunch of kids now. So that's good.